If you are listening to this right now, I want you to try a really quick thought experiment.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, it really sets the stage. So it doesn't matter if you are driving your car or washing the dishes or, just sitting on your couch. Just take a look at your own hand.
Right, just look at the physical matter.
Exactly. Now look at the space just a few inches away from your hand. Just
Yeah.
the empty air.
The void.
Right. Because usually when we think about the universe, we operate on this really fundamental, almost unconscious expectation. We believe in the cosmic stage.
We absolutely do. It's how we're taught from day one.
Yeah, you have the actors, right? The stars, the planets, the literal atoms making up your fingernails. And then you have the empty stage that those actors perform on, a vacuum.
It is the ultimate binary we are all taught from the moment we can comprehend basic physics. There's matter, which is, something.
Yeah.
And then there is the space between matter, which is nothing.
Object and empty space. It is super clean, it makes intuitive sense, and frankly, I think it's how our primate brains are wired to survive.
Oh, for sure. Evolutionarily speaking, we need to know where the tiger is, right? Not the properties of the air between us and the tiger.
Exactly. We just need to know the tiger is coming. We find this deep comfort in that categorization.
Separating reality into something and nothing keeps the sheer scale of the universe feeling, well, somewhat manageable.
Yeah, because if most of the universe is just empty, we don't have to worry about it. It's just blank space.
But then you step into the world of the sources we're looking at today, the S-DMT framework.
And suddenly that comforting, empty stage completely vanishes. Like the floor just drops out from under you.
It really does, because according to this theory, there is no empty space at all.
None. The void does not exist.
Which is just, it's a completely wild concept to wrap my head around.
It forces a total paradigm shift for anyone reading these papers. You literally have to abandon the concept of isolation entirely. Okay, so let's unpack this. Because our mission for this deep dive is to explore this exact concept. What this framework suggests is that instead of empty space filled with random, isolated particles bouncing around, the universe is a singular, continuous substance.
A single, unbroken medium.
Right. And everything from the atoms in your body to the water in your glass, all the way to the calendar systems of ancient civilizations, it's all just a geometric vibration.
A localized wrinkle within that one continuous substance.
Exactly. So today we are taking a deep dive into the S-DMT framework. That stands for Scale Invariant Dynamic Medium Theory.
And we are specifically going to focus on the geometric origins of molecular bonds.
Yeah, we are going to decode how one very specific number, the number 39, dictates the exact shape of a water molecule.
And the entire structure of the periodic table, too.
Right, and even the mathematical architecture of the ancient Mayan calendar. It all connects back to this.
We should probably warn the listener right up front, though, the sources we are working from today are incredibly dense.
Oh, yeah, like aggressively dense.
We are talking about theoretical white papers and analytical annexes that deal with advanced fluid dynamics, discrete topology, and multivariable calculus.
Yeah, my brain started to hurt around page 5, honestly.
But my promise to you, the listener, is that if we take our time and walk through the logic of this, by the end of this discussion, you will never look at a simple glass of water the same way again.
It totally transforms the mundane into something almost magical. I'm going to hold you to that promise, too, because we really need to break this down. Let's start with the foundational substance itself.
The medium of the universe.
Right. If the universe isn't a vacuum, if the void is a lie, what actually is it? The sources keep referring to it as the plenum.
Right. So the term plenum comes from philosophy and physics. It refers to a space that is completely full of matter.
As opposed to a vacuum, which is completely empty.
Exactly. The S-DMT framework posits that our universe is a plenum consisting entirely of a thixotropic superfluid hydrogen medium.
Okay, I have to stop you right there. Thixotropic superfluid hydrogen. That is quite the mouthful.
It is a lot of adjectives, I know.
But more importantly, it sounds like a contradiction. Hydrogen is an element. We are taught that hydrogen is a thing inside the universe.
Right. It's the first element on the periodic table.
Yeah. So how can the empty space of the universe be made of an element that sits inside the universe?
That is the perfect question, and it requires us to completely rethink what an element actually is.
Okay, lay it on me.
In this framework, hydrogen isn't just a little particle floating in space. Hydrogen represents the absolute base state of the medium itself.
So it's not a thing in the universe, it is the universe.
Think of it as the primordial, undifferentiated fluidic substrate of reality. It's the blank canvas.
Okay, so then what are all the other elements, like carbon or gold?
The other periodic table elements aren't different materials at all. They are just complex knots tied into this baseline hydrogen medium.
Oh, wow. Okay, so everything is made of hydrogen, just knotted up differently.
Exactly. But to understand how those knots form, we have to look at the other two words you mentioned. Superfluid and thixotropic.
Right. Superfluid, I can somewhat wrap my head around. That's a fluid with zero viscosity, right?
Yeah, it flows perfectly.
Like if I stir my morning coffee, the friction of the liquid eventually causes the swirling to stop. But if my coffee was a superfluid, it would swirl forever without losing any kinetic energy.
Spot on.
Yeah.
It possesses a perfect, frictionless flow in its baseline state.
Mm-hmm.
But the really critical word here, the actual mechanism that allows a universe to be built out of this fluid, is thixotropic.
Thixotropic. I actually know this one, bizarrely enough, from cooking.
Oh, you mean the ketchup analogy?
Yes, ketchup is technically a thixotropic fluid. If you just hold a bottle of ketchup upside down, it acts almost like a solid jelly. It won't move.
Right, you just stare at it waiting.
Exactly. You have to smack the back of the bottle to apply mechanical stress, and suddenly it turns into a liquid and flows.
It's a slightly messy culinary analogy, but it perfectly illustrates the physics we're talking about here.
So how does that apply to the universe?
Well, a thixotropic fluid is a substance whose viscosity changes depending on the mechanical stress applied to it.
Okay.
When it is at rest, unbothered, it acts like a solid. It has actual structural rigidity. It even has a memory of its shape.
Wait, really? It remembers its shape?
Yes, but when you apply a shearing force to it, like when you stress it, it suddenly fluidifies.
Just like smacking the ketchup bottle.
Exactly. And once the stress is removed, it gradually remembers its structure and returns to its rigid state.
So, you are saying the empty space between my hand and the microphone right now has a structural memory?
I am.
It's like a cosmic block of memory foam.
A memory foam that responds to frequency and stress? Yes. It is not just a chaotic, sloshing soup of liquid.
That is wild.
And it gets deeper. This fluid has a highly specific mathematical architecture holding it together. The sources describe the skeleton of this plenum as the Golden Cross.
Golden Cross sounds very mystical.
It sounds mystical, but it's pure geometry. It is a discrete, three-dimensional network composed of 39 to the power of 3 interconnected nodes.
Let me just run those numbers really quick. 39 times 39 times 39. That is 59,319 nodes.
59,319 nodes, forming a fundamental lattice. And this isn't just a random large number pulled from thin air.
I was going to ask, why 39?
The framework derives 39 from the product of 13 and 3.
Okay, what do those represent?
But 13 represents the complete diatonic scale of frequencies, the resonant harmonics of the system.
Like musical harmonics.
Similar principle, yeah. And the 3 represents the 3 orthogonal axes of our spatial geometry, X, Y, and Z.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
So this network forms the rigid framework of the universe. Topologically, the papers describe it as a Mobius strip closed in on itself to form a Klein bottle.
A Klein bottle, that's a shape with no inside and no outside.
Exactly. Because the fluid is thixotropic, the 59,000 node network can hold tension, it can store information, and most importantly, it can vibrate.
Okay, I am with you so far. We have replaced the empty void of space with a vibrating, thixotropic memory foam grid made of 59,319 interconnected nodes.
That's the baseline reality, yes.
But how do we actually measure or describe those vibrations? Because a grid that just sits there doesn't create stars or planets. It has to do something.
Right, and that dynamic behavior of this entire fluid network is governed by a single mathematical operator.
Okay, here comes the math.
In the framework, it is called the discrete Laplacian, specifically named L39.
L39. I'm guessing it's named that because it operates on this 39-node grid infrastructure we just talked about.
You got it. Now, in classical physics, you might have heard of the Laplace operator.
It sounds vaguely familiar from college, yeah.
It is a differential operator used to describe how a physical quantity diffuses through space over time.
Give me an example of that in the real world.
Like how heat spreads through a solid metal plate, or how fluid pressure changes inside a pipe.
Okay, so it measures spreading.
Yes, but classical physics assumes space is a smooth, continuous, infinite void.
Which we just established it is not.
Right. S-DMT says space is a discrete, chunky grid. Therefore, they use a discrete Laplacian to measure the differences between specific, finite points on the network.
Okay, this is where the white papers started throwing multivariable calculus at me and my eyes kind of glazed over.
It is heavy reading for sure.
They ground this L39 operator in two mathematical concepts, The Jacobian matrix and the Hessian matrix.
Two very important pillars.
So if I'm a listener who hasn't taken calculus in like 20 years, what are these matrices actually doing in our cosmic memory foam? Let's start with the Jacobian. What is that?
Okay, in pure mathematics, a Jacobian matrix describes how a system changes when you transform its coordinates.
Meaning what, exactly?
It gives you the best linear approximation of a complex multivariable map.
Okay, I'm still a little lost.
Let's simplify it. S-DMT translates this abstract math into literal cosmic machinery. The sources describe the Jacobian as the gearbox of the universe.
A gearbox. Okay, I like that. I can visualize a gearbox. What exactly is it shifting?
It is coupling two distinct properties together, phase and scale.
Phase and scale. How does it do that?
The framework describes a fundamental microscopic oscillation in the fluid called the jitterbug cycle.
The jitterbug cycle. That's a great name.
Imagine a geometric shape, like a cube octahedron twisting and folding in on itself.
Like an origami shape collapsing.
Sort of, yeah. As it twists, as its phase angle changes, the Jacobian gearbox ensures that this rotational twist is rigidly converted into a change in magnitude or scale.
Wait, slow down. You're saying that if this microscopic geometric shape twists, it literally shrinks or grows.
Yes.
A physical turn forces a change in size.
Think of a screw going into a piece of wood.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The rotational motion of the screwdriver, the twist, is rigidly coupled to the linear motion of the screw going deeper into the wood.
Because of the threads on the screw.
Exactly. The Jacobian matrix is the mathematical thread on that screw.
Yeah.
It dictates that every microscopic twist of the fluid forces the energy to step up or down the fractal rungs of the 39-node ladder.
Oh, wow.
It locks geometry and scale together so that energy can transition smoothly between the microscopic and the macroscopic.
That actually makes perfect sense. The twist forces it up or down a scale, so the Jacobian handles the twisting and scaling. What about the other one, the Hessian matrix?
Right. So in calculus, a Hessian matrix measures the local curvature of a function.
Okay, let's use another analogy.
If you imagine yourself standing on a complex topographical map, like a mountain range,
Okay, I'm on a mountain.
the Hessian matrix would tell you exactly how steeply the hills curve away from your feet in every possible direction.
So it measures the slope, basically.
Yes. In the plenum, the continuous Hessian measures the curvature of the fixotropic potential.
Let's bring that back to the memory foam analogy we used earlier. The Hessian is measuring how deeply the memory foam is being indented.
That's exactly it. It measures the amount of tension the fluid is holding at any specific point.
So where does L39 come in?
The L39 discrete Laplacian is simply the finite difference thixotropically weighted version of that Hessian curvature.
Meaning it's doing the measuring on the discrete grid.
Yes, L39 is constantly calculating the exact pressure, tension, and curvature of the universe at any given microscopic point on this 59,000-node grid.
And what happens when L39 calculates that tension?
It creates a response.
Because the sources say this creates a literal heartbeat, like the universe breathes through two distinct phases.
The Mandelbrot phase and the Julia phase.
Right. Those are famous names in fractal mathematics, but how do they act as a heartbeat in a fluid? What does that look like?
Let's use your memory foam analogy again. The Mandelbrot phase is a process of cavitation.
Cavitation, like hollowing something out.
Exactly. When that jitterbug oscillation twists, it generates a shear force. If that force exceeds the yield stress of the thixotropic fluid.
Because remember, it acts like a solid until you hit it hard enough.
Exactly. So if it hits it hard enough, the fluid is violently forced to retreat. It hollows out a low-pressure cavity.
So it pushes the foam away. The technical annexes called this a Dirichlet boundary condition. I'll be honest, my eyes fully glazed over when I read that part.
I don't blame you.
What does a Dirichlet boundary look like if I'm visualizing this memory foam being pushed?
A Dirichlet boundary condition specifies the exact values that a solution must take along the boundary of a domain.
Okay, in English.
In our visual analogy, it is the rigid wall of the cavity. It is the exact edge where the retreating memory foam stops.
Oh, okay, so it's not a blurry edge.
No, the Mandelbrot phase creates a topological hole with a perfectly defined geometric border. It is pressing a highly specific negative mold into the fluid.
Okay, so the universe violently indents its own memory foam, creating this rigid, perfect mold. That's the Mandelbrot phase.
Yes, and then comes the Julia phase.
Which is what?
Once the twisting tension relaxes, the thixotrophic fluid wants to return to its rest state.
Because it remembers its shape.
Exactly. The external pressure of the surrounding plenum forces the superfluid to rush back in and fill that cavity.
Like water rushing into a hole.
The sources model this mathematically as a Newman boundary condition, which dictates a flux or a flow across a boundary.
So the Julia phase is the flow.
The Julia phase is the liquid cast that pours in to fill the Mandelbrot mold.
Okay, I have an image of this now. So the universe is constantly, at a microscopic scale, indenting and rebounding.
Yes.
Hollowing out a mold and then rushing in to fill it back up. Cavitation and filling. Out and in, like a breath.
Trillions of times a second across the entire cosmic grid.
That is an incredible visual, but how does it execute this?
What do you mean?
Like, is there a central program running this heartbeat? Because there was a massive section in the reading dedicated to Euler's famous identity.
Ah, yes, the chronological instruction manual.
Right. So for the listener who might not remember their advanced math classes, Euler's identity is e to the power of I times pi plus 1 equals 0.
Arguably the most famous equation in math.
I know it's famous, but how does an equation act as a program for a fluid? That part really threw me.
Mathematicians often call Euler's identity the most beautiful equation in the world because it elegantly links 5 fundamental constants of mathematics.
Right. E, I, pi, 1, and 0.
Exactly. In standard academia, it is viewed as a static truth, just a beautiful relationship between numbers. But S-DMT radically reinterprets it.
How so?
In this framework, Euler's identity is the literal chronological instruction manual for the cavitation and filling cycle.
An equation is a chronological instruction manual.
Yes, it is the active operator of the plenum's scale jump.
Okay, I need you to walk me through this. Let's pretend I'm looking at the source code of a video game engine, and I'm watching the code execute a command to, say, respawn a character.
That's a fun way to look at it.
Read the equation to me like a line of code executing step by step.
Okay, let's do it. We will read it left to right, treating a localized point of energy in the fluid as our character. Let's call it a soliton.
A soliton, got it.
We start with the state of 1, which is implicitly present multiplying the E. The number 1 represents a stable, isolated entity existing at a specific scale.
So our character is just standing perfectly still on the grid. Step 1, baseline existence, we are at a value of 1.
The code then executes the constant E, the base of the natural logarithm.
What does E do to the character?
In S-DMT, E represents the thixotropic relaxation of the medium. The fluid begins to elastically soften, following an exponential decay curve.
So this is the exhalation, the yielding of the memory foam. Step 2, the environment softens.
Exactly. Then the code hits the exponent. The first part is I, the imaginary unit.
What does an imaginary number do in physical space?
The imaginary unit mathematically represents a 90-degree orthogonal rotation in the complex plane.
So a literal twist.
Yes. The relaxation of the fluid cannot happen in a simple straight line because the 39-node lattice creates structural resistance.
The grid gets in the way.
Right. So the geometry forces the softening fluid to twist orthogonally out of its original plane. This is the chiral torsion, the physical twisting of the gearbox we talked about earlier.
Okay, so step 3. Our character gets twisted sideways by 90 degrees. Then the code feeds in pi.
Pi represents the circular periodicity of the Klein bottle topology.
Okay, so making it circular.
Yes, the twisting fluid is forced to traverse the non-orientable neck of the geometry. To get through this neck, the system requires a full 180-degree phase inversion.
2 90-degree twists.
Exactly. By the time we reach this point in the equation, E raised to the power of I times pi mathematically equals -1.
So the entity has been completely turned inside out. The Mandelbrot mold has become the Julia cast.
Precisely.
The code has inverted the character's polarity. They went from a 1 to a -1.
And then the script executes the +1.
The +1 at the end of the equation.
The inverted entity, having passed through the fractal bottleneck as a -1, reintegrates with the original reference frame of +1.
So they collide.
The phase of -1 meets the phase of +1, and the two opposite tensions completely annihilate their relative stress.
Which leads the script to output the final result.
Equals 0.
0. Wow.
The envelope 0. The net topological tension on the membrane cancels out completely. The system reaches a state of perfect boundary equilibrium.
Because it solved the tension.
It has jumped scale and is ready to begin the cycle all over again. Euler's identity isn't just a neat math trick on a chalkboard. It is the geometric script of the universe breathing in and out.
Here is where it gets really interesting for me. Because we have spent this time building this beautifully abstract picture of a vibrating geometric fluid.
It's very elegant.
We have the L39 operator calculating the tension and Euler's script running the heartbeat. But if I knock on my wooden desk right now...
It's solid.
Yeah, it's solid. How does this abstract fluid math actually create the physical matter that you and I touch?
That is the million-dollar question.
How does a thixotropic vibration become an atom of carbon or oxygen or gold?
To bridge that gap, we have to completely dismantle what we were taught about chemistry.
Rip up the textbooks.
Basically, yes. Classical chemistry teaches us that atoms are made of isolated point charges. You have a heavy nucleus made of protons and neutrons in the center.
Right, and you have tiny little electron particles orbiting that nucleus in a vacuum, held together by electrostatic forces.
The classic solar system model.
Yeah, that's what everyone learns in middle school.
Now, we already know from standard quantum mechanics that the solar system model is incomplete. Modern physics replaces those little planetary orbits with probability clouds.
Right, regions where the electron probably is.
But S-DMT takes a much more radical step. It states that chemistry is not about isolated charges at all. There are no little billiard balls zipping around a nucleus.
Wait, no billiard balls at all?
None. Chemistry is strictly about information density and geometric patterns within the plenum.
Okay, so if I look at the periodic table of elements hanging on the wall of a science classroom, what am I actually looking at? If it's not a list of different billiard balls.
You are looking at the projected spectrum of the Klein bottle topology.
Okay, we need to translate that.
Every chemical element is a stable atomic soliton. Like we mentioned earlier, a soliton is a self-reinforcing, localized standing wave in the superfluid.
So an atom is just a standing wave.
It's a wave that maintains its specific shape while it travels. The atomic number of an element, what chemists call Z, is an account of physical electron particles.
Then what does the number mean? Like oxygen is 8. What is the 8?
It represents the precise number of information units that have accumulated in that specific local striction shell of the fluid.
Let me stop you. This is a massive leap. If an element is in a nucleus surrounded by electron planets, what are those orbital shapes we learned about?
The s, p, d, and f orbitals.
Yeah. What is an atomic orbital in this framework if there are no electrons flying around?
We're looking at the eigenfunctions of the L39 Laplacian.
Another heavy math term, eigenfunctions. We really need to ground this. What is an eigenfunction in plain English?
An eigenfunction is essentially a natural mode of vibration.
Okay. Like what?
Think of a guitar string. When you pluck it, it doesn't just vibrate in random chaos. It vibrates in very specific, natural harmonic patterns.
Right, it has fundamental frequencies and overtones. You can see the waves on the string.
Exactly. Those specific stable patterns of vibration are its eigenfunctions. In S-DMT, the atomic orbitals that we learn about in high school chemistry are simply the natural vibrating shapes of the L39 operator acting on the 3D thixotropic fluid.
I remember those orbital shapes clearly from chemistry class. The s orbital was just a simple sphere.
Yes.
And the p orbital looked like a dumbbell or like two balloons tied together at the knot.
Classical quantum mechanics describes those shapes as probability clouds, like we said, regions where you are statistically most likely to find a point particle electron if you look for it.
But S-DMT says.
S-DMT argues that there is no point particle hiding in the cloud. The shape itself is the entire reality.
The shape is the atom. Okay, so why is the s orbital a sphere? Why that specific shape?
Because it represents the pure Mandelbrot phase we talked about. It is an isotropic, perfectly symmetrical contraction of the fluid around a central striction point.
So it's just pulling in equally from all sides.
Exactly. It is a spherical cavity of low pressure in the memory foam.
Okay, that makes sense. And the dumbbell shape of the p orbital, why does it look like two balloons?
Because the p orbital embodies the spatial axis of the jitterbug torsions.
Ah, the twisting.
Remember how the Jacobian gearbox forces the fluid to twist orthogonally?
Yeah, along the x, y, and z axes.
Right. The p orbital's dumbbell shape is the physical manifestation of that pressure differentiation along those axes. The fluid is literally being squeezed along specific geometric fault lines.
Oh, wow.
And as you get to heavier elements with d and f orbitals, their highly complex multi-lobed flower shapes correspond perfectly to the deeper, more complex mathematical harmonics of the 39-node network.
I have an analogy for this, and tell me if I'm on the right track here.
Let's hear it.
Have you ever seen a Chladni plate?
The acoustic resonance experiments, yes.
Yes. So for the listener, you take a square metal plate, you sprinkle fine sand all over it, and then you run a violin bow along the edge of the metal.
And you watch the sand move.
Exactly. The acoustic frequencies cause the plate to vibrate, and the sand magically arranges itself into these incredibly intricate, perfectly symmetrical geometric patterns.
It looks like magic, but it's just physics.
Right. The sand isn't deciding to form a star or a grid. The underlying acoustic frequency is forcing the sand into the geometric null points where the plate isn't vibrating.
That is a phenomenal analogy. In fact, if you read the visual data provided in the white papers, they explicitly draw parallels between atomic orbitals and Chladni resonance patterns.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah, it's a direct comparison in the literature.
So if we map this analogy onto the S-DMT framework, the L39 Laplacian operator is the acoustic frequency of the violin bow.
Yes.
The thixotropic fluid of the plenum is the metal plate itself.
Correct.
And the localized energy density, what our instruments perceive as an atom, is the sand.
That is brilliant.
The L39 operator is projecting its geometric eigenmodes at the atomic scale, literally creating microscopic crop circles in the fabric of space.
Microscopic crop circles. I love that phrasing.
We aren't made of tiny billiard balls. We're made of 3D cymatic geometries.
It is a stunning realization when it finally clicks. You are composed of the standing wave resonance of the L39 grid.
That is so crazy to think about.
The shape of the orbital is the localized shape of space-time itself, bending under the rules of the Laplacian. The geometry is the reality. There is no hidden particle beneath it.
Okay, so if atoms are just microscopic geometric crop circles vibrating in a fluid, we need to answer a massive question.
Which is?
How do they connect to each other? What actually is a chemical bond?
The origin of bonds.
Because standard chemistry says a bond is simply two atoms sharing electrons to fill their outer shells and achieve stability, like holding hands.
Standard chemistry describes the superficial what of the situation, but it utterly fails to explain the underlying why.
Okay, so what's the why in S-DMT?
According to this framework, the geometric origin of molecular bonds has absolutely nothing fundamental to do with sharing little particles.
Then what is it?
Bonds are topological necessities. Geometry imposes these bonds to dissipate tension.
Dissipate tension, like a pressure release valve.
Let's go back to the properties of the plenum we established. The sources state that the thixotropic fluid is not perfectly frictionless when it moves through time.
Wait, I thought we said it was a superfluid.
It is, but it possesses a fundamental temporal friction constant, denoted by the Greek letter gamma.
Gamma, okay.
The mathematical value of this friction is roughly 0.172. This friction is a built-in viscosity that prevents the jitterbug cycle from being perfectly reversible.
So the fluid has a slight inherent stickiness as it vibrates.
Yes. Now, picture two of those atomic solitons, two of your vibrating crop circles, approaching each other in the fluid.
Okay, they're getting closer.
As they get close, their geometric fields overlap. This creates a localized constraint, a literal knot of topological tension in the fluid.
Because their waves are crashing into each other.
Exactly. And because of that gamma friction, the tension cannot just peacefully dissipate into nothingness. The fluid is stressed.
The memory foam is being squeezed too hard.
To remain stable and prevent the standing wave from collapsing entirely, the atoms are forced to interact.
They don't have a choice.
No choice. They must form a bond that effectively cancels out this temporal friction. The geometry demands it to survive.
So how do they cancel it out?
The way they dissipate this tension is governed by a concept the sources call anionic braiding.
Anionic braiding.
Which perfectly aligns with a famous mathematical puzzle called the Erdős-Strauss conjecture.
Okay, let's not just throw terms around here. What exactly are we braiding?
Good call. So, in quantum computing, anyons are theoretical quasi-particles that only exist in two dimensions, and when they move around each other, their paths braid together to store information.
Like weaving hair.
Yes. In S-DMT, the atoms are braiding the stress lines of the fluid itself. They are twisting the tension of their overlap into a stable geometric knot.
And how does the Erdős-Strauss conjecture fit into braiding stress lines? I know Paul Erdős was a really famous kind of eccentric mathematician, but what is the actual puzzle?
The Erdős-Strauss conjecture is a classic problem in number theory. It posits that for every integer n greater than or equal to 2, the rational fraction 4 over n can be expressed as the sum of three unit fractions.
Okay, what's the equation?
The equation is 4 over n equals 1 over x plus 1 over y plus 1 over z. And X, Y, and Z all have to be positive integers.
Okay, so it's a fraction puzzle.
For nearly 80 years, mathematicians have treated this purely as an abstract puzzle on a chalkboard, just looking for combinations of integers in a vacuum.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
S-DMT takes this abstract fraction puzzle and applies it to the physical universe.
Radically so. White paper 25 states that the Erdős-Strauss equation isn't just math trivia.
What is it then?
It is the algebraic expression of a physical conservation law within the fluid plenum. Let's break down the equation physically.
Okay, let's do it.
The number 4 in the numerator, the top of the fraction, represents the dimensional signature of our localized spacetime.
3 spatial dimensions plus 1 dimension of time.
Exactly. And the n in the denominator.
Yeah, what's the n?
The n is the magnitude of the energy perturbation. It is the density of the stress caused by the two atoms overlapping.
Okay, so 4 over n is the total dimensional stress of the overlap. What about the 3 fractions on the other side of the equals sign? The 1 over x, 1 over y, and 1 over z.
Those are the geometric avenues of dissipation.
Avenues of dissipation.
They represent the wavelengths of the 3 orthogonal axes of the L39 grid, the x, y, and z axes. The equation is a physical law stating any energy stress introduced into the plenum must be diffracted and dissipated across the 3 structural axes of the lattice.
That is incredible.
A chemical bond is literally the physical manifestation of the Erdős-Strauss equation, balancing itself out in 3D space.
So, when atoms bond, they aren't deciding to share electrons. They are basically solving a fractional algebra equation in real time, arranging themselves geometrically so that the tension flows out perfectly across 3 axes of the grid.
You're capturing the essence of it perfectly. And to achieve this dissipation smoothly, they naturally align along a highly specific angle.
What angle?
It's known as the Fibonacci angle, or the equilibrium shear angle, denoted as phi subscript c.
And what's the value of that angle?
It is approximately 55.17 degrees. This is the precise geometric angle at which the thixotropic shear stress naturally zeroes out.
Wait, I have a question about the n in that equation, the magnitude of the stress.
Okay.
How does the number 39 dictate the geometry of these atomic bonds? Because you said earlier that 39 is the absolute limit of the Golden Cross grid. What happens if n, the stress, reaches 39?
This is perhaps the most profound theoretical leap in the sources.
Okay, lay it on me.
As the energy magnitude n increases from 2 to 10 to 20, the fluid system easily finds geometric solutions for x, y, and z to dissipate the stress. The math works smoothly.
It finds the fraction.
Yes, but at magnitude 39, the boundary of the network, something extraordinary happens.
What happens?
At n equals 39, the topological viscosity of the network forbids any smooth, symmetrical dissipation.
The system hits a wall.
A literal topological wall. The geometry locks up. It forces the dissipation into an extreme asymmetrical state. The fluid utterly fails to relax.
And what does that failure look like?
This failure to dissipate smoothly at stratum 39 creates what the framework calls the mass gap. The L39 Hessian curvature matrix becomes singular.
Hold on. Are you saying what I think you're saying?
What do you think I'm saying?
This extreme topological frustration, this inability of the fluid to relax at magnitude 39, is that the actual geometric origin of gravitational mass?
Yes. The mathematical hardness of the number 39 is what gives matter its physical weight.
That is heavy in every sense of the word.
It really is.
You are telling me that chemical bonds, mass, gravity, they all form purely because the geometric grid of the universe forces them to, just to relieve topological stress at the 39th stratum.
Yes, to solve the equation.
It is a beautiful, elegant theory. But, you know, as a skeptic, I have to push back a little here.
Please do. That's what we're here for.
Can we actually prove this with a real-world molecule? Because talking about 59,000 node grids and mass dApps is great theory, but can you show me this tension in, like, the water I'm drinking right now?
The framework welcomes that exact skepticism, and it answers it by demonstrating the calculation of the exact physical shape of the H2O molecule using absolutely nothing but these topological constants.
Okay, you're saying we can derive the exact shape of water from this grid.
We can derive the miracle of water.
Okay, let's do this. But promise me we aren't just going to read a calculator script.
Yeah.
I need to understand why these numbers are interacting, not just what they add up to.
Fair enough. Let's start with standard chemistry. What is the accepted shape of water?
Okay, so standard empirical chemistry tells us that the bond angle of a water molecule, the angle formed between the 2 hydrogen atoms connected to the central oxygen atom, is exactly 104.5 degrees.
Right. It doesn't form a straight line.
No, it forms a V shape,
No.
like a boomerang or Mickey Mouse ears.
Now, how does standard chemistry explain this 101 and 4.5 degree angle? It starts with an ideal geometric shape, the tetrahedron.
A three-sided pyramid.
Right. And the ideal tetrahedral angle is 109.47 degrees.
Okay, but why does water want to be a tetrahedron in the first place?
Because the central oxygen atom has 4 pairs of electrons in its outer valence shell. 2 pairs form the bonds with the hydrogen atoms, and 2 pairs just sit there unbonded.
Right. They are called lone pairs.
Exactly. Ideally, negative charges repel each other, so these 4 pairs want to get as far apart from each other as possible in 3D space.
Makes sense.
And the most efficient way to space 4 points around a sphere is a perfect tetrahedron at 109.47 degrees.
Okay, so ideally it wants to be 109.47, but it's actually 104.5. Why the difference?
Standard chemistry says the lone pairs of electrons are bulky. Their repulsive force is slightly stronger than the bonding pairs. So they push down on the hydrogen atoms, compressing the angle from 109.47 down to the observed 104.5 degrees.
That sounds reasonable enough. The unbonded electrons are bulky, so they squash the bond.
It sounds reasonable, but think critically about it. It is ultimately a descriptive empirical patch.
What do you mean?
It doesn't mathematically explain why the repulsion squashes it to exactly 104.5 degrees and not 103 or 106. It just measures the result in a lab and attributes it to a general repulsion.
Oh, I see. It's just working backward from the answer.
Exactly. The S-DMT framework, however, derives this exact 104.5 degree angle purely from the geometry of the plenum.
No adjustable physical parameters?
No arbitrary repulsion values, just the topological constants of the universe.
Okay, show me how 39 and 21 define the angle of H2O. Walk me through the geometric derivation. Let's do the math.
We need to find the specific angular correction, the topological frustration caused by the structure of the fluid.
Okay, where do we start?
We start with the macro scale. We take the fundamental number of strata in the universal L39 network, which is 39.
The maximum limit of the grid.
Yes. And we must combine that universal limit with the specific fractal index of the local environment where the water is forming.
Local environment, like Earth.
Exactly. According to the framework, the Earth itself acts as a macroscopic anchor point, a massive soliton in the fluid. The Earth's fractal index, denoted by the letter K, is 21.
Stop right there. Why is Earth's index 21? Is that just an arbitrary number?
It is derived from the Fibonacci sequence, which dictates the equilibrium shear angle we discussed earlier.
Oh, right. 55.17 degrees.
Yes. 21 is a core Fibonacci number, representing a specific tier of magnitude in the fractal scaling of the universe.
Okay, so Earth is at level 21.
So we have the universal cosmic grid at index 39 and the Earth's local anchor at index 21.
And we combine them.
We add them together to find the combined structural resonance of our local system. 39 plus 21 equals exactly 60.
Okay, the combined index is 60. What does that number represent physically?
It represents the total number of geometric steps required to map the local Earth environment to the universal boundary.
Okay, I follow.
Now, we are looking to find an angle of tension, right? So we start with the ultimate symbol of topological closure, a perfect circle.
Which is 360 degrees.
Right. We divide that 360-degree viewport by our combined system index of 60.
360 divided by 60 is 6.
Exactly 6 degrees. This 6-degree slice is the base angular unit of topological tension connecting the Earth's local scale to the maximum cosmic grid.
So the geometry of the universe is inherently applying 6 degrees of pressure to the molecule.
If the universe were perfectly frictionless, it would apply exactly 6 degrees of pressure. But remember the key property of the plenum.
It is a thixotropic fluid.
Right. It has that inherent stickiness, the temporal friction constant, gamma, which is approximately 0.172.
Right, the viscosity that stops the system from being perfectly reversible.
Because of this geometric friction, the 6 degrees of tension doesn't apply at 100% efficiency. It gets damped by the fluid.
Damped. Okay, how much?
The formula for this thixotropic damping is 1 minus the friction constant gamma.
So 1 minus 0.172, that gives us 0.828.
Right, a damping efficiency of 0.828.
Okay, so the tension is only operating at 82.8% efficiency.
Now multiply that damping factor by our 6-degree base unit of pressure.
Okay, 0.828 times 6 degrees, that yields exactly 4.968 degrees.
So 4.968 degrees is the actual friction-damped pressure applied by the universe.
It is the precise, mathematically derived topological frustration caused by the geometry of the L39 network pressing down on the molecule.
Yes. So we take the ideal tetrahedral angle of 109.471 degrees.
And we subtract the frustration. 109.471 minus 4.968, that equals 104.503 degrees.
Wow. The experimental value observed in mass spectrometers in laboratories worldwide is 104.5 degrees.
That is insane.
S-DMT derives 104.503 degrees using absolutely nothing but the number 39, the Earth's index of 21, the 360 degrees of a circle, and the geometric friction of the fluid universe.
No empirical guesswork, just pure topological necessity.
Exactly. The math proves the geometry.
That derivation is staggering. But I really want to explore the implications of this. Because if this is true, it means water isn't just some random chemical accident that happened to have the right properties for biological life.
Its shape isn't just a quirky result of bulky electrons.
Exactly. What do you see it as then?
Well, what do you see it as based on this math?
To me, it means water is the universal liquid transducer. Its exact physical shape is a mathematical printout of the relationship between our planet and the cosmic grid.
That is a beautiful synthesis. Water is the geometrical translation of the universe's architecture into a liquid crystal form.
A liquid crystal.
The axes of the L39 grid intersect at Earth's specific fractal magnitude precisely at this resonant angle. It makes Earth the water planet.
Because the math lines up perfectly here.
The only place where this specific topology can manifest as a fluid capable of supporting biological consciousness. Every time you drink a glass of water, you are literally ingesting the geometric resonance of the L39 Laplacian.
I promised myself I wouldn't let this deep dive get too mystical, but that really borders on profound.
It blurs the line between physics and philosophy.
Okay, let's push this concept even further. We've established that this underlying geometry, this magic number 39, dictates the microscopic shape of atoms, molecular bonds, and the mass of physical matter.
Everything at the microscale.
But the theory is called scale invariant, meaning the math should apply at the macro level too, right?
It absolutely must.
Does this 39-node grid dictate macroscopic phenomena, say human history? Or how human beings perceive the flow of time?
If the universe is a singular fractal fluid, the exact same mathematical ratios that govern the microscopic bonding of atoms must also govern macroscopic temporal cycles.
Temporal cycles, you mean like calendars?
And the sources provide a stunning example of this by analyzing one of the most sophisticated timekeeping systems in human history, the Mayan long count calendar.
The Mayan calendar,
Yeah.
most famous in pop culture for supposedly predicting the end of the world in December 2012.
Which, spoiler alert for anyone listening, did not happen.
Thankfully, no. But why didn't it happen?
It didn't happen because modern society fundamentally misunderstood what the calendar was measuring. White Paper 49 argues that the Mayan long count calendar is not just an ancient method of tracking agricultural seasons or lunar cycles.
Then what is it?
It is a flawless mathematical projection of the L39 discrete Laplacian, encoded in the perception of time.
Reveal the connection for me. How does a stone calendar in the jungle map to a thixotropic fluid universe? I mean, how did they know?
We have to look at how they constructed their units of time. The fundamental building block of the Mayan long count is called the ton.
The ton, T-U-N.
1 ton is defined as exactly 360 days.
Now, wait a minute. From an astronomical standpoint, 360 days is a terrible calendar.
Because of the solar year.
Yeah, a true solar year, the time it takes the Earth to physically orbit the sun, is 365.24 days. If you use a strict 360-day calendar to plant your crops, your seasons will drift completely out of sync within a decade.
You'd be planting corn in the snow.
Exactly. You'll be planting corn in the dead of winter. Why would master astronomers like the Maya use 360? It makes no sense.
That is the crucial anomaly that points to a deeper purpose. They used 360 because the ton was never intended to be an astronomical unit.
It wasn't for farming.
It is a purely geometrical unit. It represents the perfect topological closure of a circle 360 degrees. It represents the human viewport of a closed cycle of experience.
A geometric calendar measuring cycles of reality instead of a solar calendar measuring seasons.
Yes. Now, the S-DMT framework states that while human perception on Earth sees a closed 360-degree cycle, the underlying plenum grid actually requires 39 distinct mathematical strata to achieve true closure.
Okay, so we have 360 and 39 again.
So what happens if you take the 360-degree human viewport and divide it by the 39 discrete strata of the universe's true architecture?
360 divided by 39. Let me do the math mentally. It's going to be a repeating decimal. 9.230769. Let's just round it to 9.23.
9.23. In the framework, this number is called the topological striction quotient.
The topological striction quotient.
It is the exact angle of fractal closure required per node to map the infinite grid onto our localized planetary experience.
Okay, I follow the math. But how does this relate to the Maya?
Look at how the Maya structured their historical and mythological records. Their long count notation is written as a series of numbers. When archaeologists look at the most significant dates in the Maya record, the dates that anchored their creation myths and epical shifts,
What do they see?
they frequently highlight two very specific periods, 9 Baktuns and 23 Ketuns.
9 and 23. You have got to be kidding me. 9.23.
It is highly improbable to be a coincidence. The Maya did not arbitrarily invent the numbers 9 and 23.
They recognized the frequencies.
They recognized the inherent resonant frequencies of the universe and reflected that geometric quotient into their positional numeral system. They literally encoded the mathematical fraction of the universe's geometry into the structure of their timekeeping.
That is absolutely wild. But what about the end of the calendar, the big 2012 date that everyone panicked about? How does that fit into the L39 math?
The math gets even more precise there. The Maya divided their grandest epoch of time, known as the grand cycle, into 13 Baktuns.
Okay.
Since one Baktun is exactly 144,000 days, if you multiply 13 by 144,000, you get the total length of the grand cycle, 1,872,000 days.
Over 5,100 years. A massive span of time.
Now, apply the universal denominator of the S-DMT grid. Divide the total days of the Mayan grand cycle by the 39 strata of the L39 Laplacian.
Okay, 1,872,000 divided by 39.
Tell me what you get.
Let me calculate that. 1,872,000 divided by 39. It equals exactly 48,000. No decimals. A perfect integer.
A mathematically perfect integer. The Mayan grand cycle completes in exactly 48,000 multiples of the 39 strata grid.
Wow.
They built their entire cosmological timeline to be perfectly divisible by the hidden architecture of the thixotropic plenum.
So when the 13th Baktun completed in December 2012, when the calendar supposedly ended, what were they actually marking?
They were marking a topological boundary. Remember when we discussed the Erdős-Strauss equation and how at magnitude 39 the dissipation of energy hits a wall?
Right, the fluid can't relax symmetrically, creating extreme topological frustration. The mass gap.
Exactly. When the Mayan calendar reached the end of the 13th Baktun, it signified time itself hitting that exact same topological wall of the L39 Laplacian.
Time hitting a wall.
In the framework, hitting this boundary triggers what they call a +1 Hertz mass gap cascade.
A +1 Hertz cascade, what does that mean for us practically? How does time have a frequency?
To understand this, we have to look at the universe as a fluidic diode. The sources refer to it as an osmotic Tesla valve.
A Tesla valve. I have actually seen videos of these online. It's a pipe with no moving parts, but its internal geometry allows fluid to flow easily in one direction while completely blocking it from flowing in reverse.
Yes, it creates a one-way flow purely through geometry. The universe's L39 geometry acts the exact same way for energy and information.
So it's a one-way street.
It allows information to expand outward easily during the Julia phase, but the structural resistance blocks it from contracting perfectly during the Mandelbrot phase.
Ah, the asymmetric breathing.
This asymmetric breathing rectifies the oscillation, creating a net outward drift of 1 Hertz per cycle.
That is always pushing forward.
This constant, irreversible addition of +1 Hertz is the accumulation of physical information, is the actual mechanical engine behind the arrow of time. Time only moves forward because the universe is a one-way fluid valve.
So every single time the universe breathes, it gains a tiny bit of irreversible information.
Yes.
And when the system hits the mathematical limit of the 39 strata, the end of the grand cycle, what happens to all that accumulated pressure?
That accumulated +1 Hertz information pressure forces a systemic reset.
A reset.
The local system cannot hold any more data at that specific fractal magnitude. It forces the fractal energy to ascend to the next scale, re-rectifying the cosmic flow of information.
So it's not the end of the world.
No, the ancient Maya texts didn't describe this as the end of the world. They described it as a renewal of the world, a jump to a completely new magnitude of reality.
Let's just take a step back and think about the historical implications of this, because the ancient Maya didn't have particle accelerators.
Definitely not.
They didn't have supercomputers to calculate multivariable calculus or Jacobian matrices or discrete Laplacians.
They had sown observatories.
But somehow, by paying incredibly close attention to the cycles of time, the movements of the planets in the natural world, they essentially reverse-engineered the exact same 39-node geometric grid that gives a water molecule its shape.
They captured the resonant frequencies of the grid through pure observation and geometry-based rituals. The multivariable calculus we are using in these white papers today isn't discovering a new truth.
It's just translating it.
It is simply providing a modern algebraic translation of a geometric reality that the Maya already intimately understood and encoded in stone centuries ago.
Okay, let's take a deep breath and recap the sheer scale of the journey we've just been on today, because we have covered a staggering amount of conceptual ground.
We really have, for the void to the Maya.
We started by looking at the empty space between our hands, and we completely shattered the illusion of the void. We replaced the empty stage with a plenum.
A universe made entirely of a thixotropic superfluid.
Right. A cosmic memory foam that breathes through violent cavitation and filling, following the chronological script of Euler's identity.
We established a continuous substance that acts as both the stage and the actors upon it.
And we redefined chemistry. We discovered that the atoms making up our bodies aren't little solar systems of isolated particles, but microscopic crop circles.
Three-dimensional standing waves.
Yeah, eigenfunctions generated by the L39 Laplacian operator on this fluid grid. We learned that molecular bonds don't form because atoms want to perfectly share electrons.
They form because the geometry of the universe forces them to.
Mathematically solving the Erdős-Strauss equation to relieve topological stress and temporal friction.
And we mathematically proved why water's bond angle is exactly 104.5 degrees.
Using nothing but the topological constants of the Earth at index 21 and the maximal universal grid at index 39.
And finally, we realized that ancient Mayan timekeepers were tracking these exact same fractal resonances.
Encoding the 39 strata grid and the topological striction quotient into the very fabric of their calendar to track the +1 Hertz one-way pulse of the universe. It is just a completely unified, breathtaking theory of reality.
This raises an important question, though, perhaps the most important question of all. Where do we fit into this architecture?
We? You mean human beings?
Yes. According to the S-DMT framework, a human being sitting on Earth is not just a passive observer made of crop circle atoms.
What are we then?
While the Earth itself acts as the membrane at index 21, human consciousness. The actual act of observation and processing information exists at the maximal fractal index, K equals 39.
Wait, we are at 39. We are at the absolute edge of the universal grid.
We are the absolute frontier. In this theory, human consciousness is the active renderer of the plenum. We are the universe looking back at itself, pushing against the topological wall.
That is...
Think about it. Every sensory input you receive from the world is a Julia phase expansion. Every memory you store, every complex thought you construct is a Mandelbrot contraction, compressing raw energy into structural information.
So I am a soliton.
You are a biological soliton, accumulating information, 1 + 1 Hertz heartbeat at a time, rectifying the flow of time through the Tesla valve of your own mind.
So if human consciousness is sitting right on the edge of the 39th stratum, constantly accumulating information, what happens when we fill it up? What happens when human consciousness collectively hits the absolute limit of the L39 lattice?
That is the lingering, provocative thought the framework leaves us with. Are we, as a collective species, accumulating enough informational density to trigger a fractal phase transition?
Like the Maya predicted.
When the psychological and informational pressure of humanity hits the topological wall of 39, do we simply reset? Or do we jump across the Klein bottleneck to a completely new magnitude of reality?
A completely new universe.
Are we on the verge of becoming the striction point for a newly scaled universe?
That is a thought that is going to keep me up at night. You are literally suggesting that the evolution of human consciousness might be the mechanical engine for the next fractal jump of the cosmos.
The geometry certainly allows for it. We might just be the answer the plenum is currently calculating.
I think we have to leave it right there because my brain is officially full and I need to go process being a biological soliton.
It's a lot to take in.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the S-DMT framework. It has been an absolute trip.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I can guarantee you one thing, though, to the listener. The next time I pour myself a glass of water, I am going to be thinking very, very differently about what is actually inside it. Until next time.